Welcome to the Applied Blockchain podcast, where blockchain technology and innovation are in the spotlight. My name is ben-ari, and I'm the founder and CEO of Applied Blockchain, and I'll be your host as we dive into relaxed conversations with industry experts and thought leaders to get their views on what they're building, the Web3 ecosystem and its transformative impact on the modern world. Hi, John. John Woods, welcome to the Applied Blockchain podcast. It's great to have you on as our very first guest.
Thank you, Eddie. I'm actually really excited to be here because you guys are at the cold front of building stuff on Algorand, and you build at Applied Blockchain. I know you guys are working on some very sophisticated applied cryptography and implementations. So I'm excited to be here on the podcast with you.
Yeah, we're proud and privileged to be working closely with the Algorand Foundation. So, John, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Let's get started. I think for the audience to learn a bit more. So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you come from, how you got here.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm John Woods. I come from Dublin in Ireland, and I was always big into computers when I was a kid. From the time when the original Game Boy came out, I loved playing with it. Of course, they're video games and not computers, but my love of computers kind of grew, and I grew up with like a 386 DX 40 megahertz machine running DOS, 4 and 5, and learning how computers worked. I was always big, really into it from a personal perspective. And so I did a degree in computer engineering in university, and that was cool. Then at my first job, I worked at Ericsson as a software developer. Ericsson's really cool, actually, because they're a telecoms company, and they build the kind of stuff for the networks, the kind of radio network controllers, and it's quite sophisticated stuff. And so it was a steep learning curve, but really smart people there. I did various things in my career, but I guess over the last decade or so, really I've been focused on applied cryptography. And so it's something that got me into blockchain. It wasn't that I didn't kind of come fresh to blockchain. I came to blockchain after, falling in love with elliptic curve cryptography, falling in love with RSA, and I just think that cryptography in general it's a magic technology for me. And so it's like, when I first saw the iPhone, I was like, wow, that's like an incredible technology. And so I feel the same when I look at cryptography. One day I was just on Excel working in a bank, and I started implementing my own version of like little toy RSA example with the 2 prime numbers that were 7 and 3 or whatever. And I just couldn't, to me, it just struck me as so amazing. You can use mathematics to hide information. You can use mathematics to verify information, and indeed with digital signatures to attest to information. And so it was the closest thing I'd seen to magic. And then there's an amazing sense of for me, because I wasn't very good at mathematics when I was in school. So there's an amazing sense of excitement when you kind of figure out, I can do this. I can actually understand this stuff. And then I kind of fell into blockchain because it's a natural fit because it uses all that technology. I've been working, of course, on Cardano. My last role, I was the lead architect on Cardano. And now here at the foundation, I'm the CTO.
What was the moment? What was your blockchain moment? What was the first time you were exposed to it and it kind of clicked?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was 2013 or so. A buddy of mine came around with a polycarbonate MacBook. Do you remember the little white MacBooks made of plastic? And he had a Bitcoin node running on it. And Bitcoin was like €9 or something. Like he about $9. He sent me like 1.6 Bitcoin just as a demo that night. It's so funny because I never gave it back to him, but it was only worth like €15 at that point.
But you kept it.
Yeah, I kept it. Actually, you know what? So he was explaining. I was like, yeah, dude, okay, you can send some message between the computers. We could already do that, right? I mean, I was like, whatever. And he was like, no, you don't get it. This is like, it's peer-to-peer. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we have peer-to-peer messaging already. And he was like, yeah, but it's decentralized and there's no authority and it's secure. And so it took me a while to get it. And then with that 1.6 Bitcoin, I actually sent it to Mt. Gox. I don't know if you remember Mt. Gox. It was an early Bitcoin exchange. And so I lost it. And so I'm a creditor in Mt. Gox. So I've got like a little creditor thing. And so of my 1.6 Bitcoins, I think I'm getting back like 0.1 or something like that. So
okay. I mean, you could have done the same thing again with FTX this year, right?
Yeah. So I'm still waiting. It's been a decade since Mt. Gox collapsed, and I'm still waiting for my Bitcoin. But what I get back will probably be worth nothing. But that's how I learned about it, and that was my first foray into playing with it.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very, very cool.
How about you? What was your?
I met with a friend. I was working in a bank in London, and I met with a friend from university for a coffee, and he was trading bitcoins.
Oh wow!
And he was a trader himself, and that was his perspective. And I just started looking at the tech, and Ethereum had just come out,
Right?
and I started playing around with it, and that just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Actually, when I was working in various banks, I also kind of did a stint in banking. I worked in the Central Bank of Ireland and worked a little bit with the ECB. I remember going to, on the tech side, I was a solution architect in the bank, so I wasn't on the finance side, but I remember going to the various developers that we had in-house. And it was like 2015 or so, and Ethereum was kind of becoming I think it was like $9 or something at that point. Like it was like $7 to $9 because it was after the DAO hack, and it was, and I remember going to some of these guys, and some of them were really receptive to it, and they just got it straight away. And so because they were kind of fintech guys, and so lots of them took massive positions in Ethereum. So I'm a popular guy at the central bank because I helped some people understand it early. So it was cool.
Yeah. John, where do you see, I know there's a lot of nonsense in our space, right? There's a lot of claims made. There's a lot of people reading a lot of things into it. Where do you see the value of the tech?
Yeah, so I agree with you. There's, someone said to me a while ago, and I think it's really, really funny and also quite true. Crypto, and when I say crypto, I mean cryptocurrency space, has the smartest people in the world and the dumbest people in the world working in it. Yeah. So you've got incredible talent like Sylvia McCallie, Chris Picard, Charles and the team over at Cardano, etc., Vitalik, and you've also got the hype moon boys who are just, and all the scams and the rug pulls. So,
I'd probably add to that, you've got the most naive people coupled with the most sly and sophisticated.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point. It's actually completely true. And it's heartbreaking, I was getting my house painted recently, and I was talking to the painter who's not technical at all, and he was he said, "What do you work at? You're around the house all the time." I was like, "I work in computer stuff, and I work for my house." And he was like, "Oh, I've got crypto," and he opened up his wallet, and he has this portfolio of stuff, and he has, some good stuff, right? He's got some Monero, he's got some Ethereum, but he's got some nonsense as well. And I'm like, "Do you even know what any of these things kind of are?" And he's like, Nah, I just kind of bought them. And so this is the problem. You got people who actually fundamentally don't really get it. And so to answer your question, what to me is the essence of why we bother with this stuff, it goes back to the kind of the core philosophical virtues for me, which are, decentralization is important. And it's important not because the fiat system sucks or because governments are bad or anything like that. It's nice to have, alongside the traditional financial system, which is obviously excellent, it's nice to have a decentralized network that's really a network of value between its participants, controlled and owned by the users. And so I love that idea. Also, I love the fact that it's permissionless. I was just telling my buddy the other day, I wanted to send some money to my parents, and my bank won't let me send more than $4,000 in a day. And it's just that's my money. I should be able to send it. And so I don't like the permissioning around the traditional financial system. I'm not saying we shouldn't have laws. I'm not saying you should be allowed money launder and send what you like to whoever and all this kind of stuff. I understand it's important to have some rules around finance, of course, or people will end up getting hurt. But, I do like the freedom that, with my Bitcoin or my algo, when I send it, I choose how much to send. Now, there comes a responsibility with that. But, of course, that's a powerful thing. And then finally, I would say, censorship resistance is also very important. I don't really like the idea that my bank won't let me send money to a person in Russia, as an example. Maybe I've got a very close friend there who needs help, and maybe I choose to give him my money or whatever, And so these things for me, I don't like other people choosing my political views and what I am and I'm not allowed to do. And so for me, there's a massive freedom in the space that we work, and we're building financial systems that are inclusive, and that are, to me, very important. And it dovetails quite nicely with, I think, cryptography, which also gives people freedom. And I know some people think, oh, well, you shouldn't have end-to-end encryption. There shouldn't be that level of privacy. The police should be able to inspect all messages and everything else. But I don't think so. I think it's important. Of course, we should have laws, and if people are found to be breaking them, they should be punished appropriately. Because otherwise we have complete chaos. But I think it's important that people have privacy. I think it's important that people are able to have private conversations. This all kind of wraps into one big ball that I'm very excited about, because the entire space for me is is just the most exciting area of computer science right now, except for maybe the amazing advancements in ML and deep learning, which is also very cool.
Yeah. Okay. Super interesting. I think I would probably add to that as well in saying the privacy. You know, we've got technology, and the privacy itself can be built anywhere we choose to build it. So you know, you could have a blockchain where when nobody can see anything, right? Which we have like Monero and Zcash and so on. And you could have blockchains where everybody can see everything that we have as well, and you can have everything in the middle. Right, there could be some things that we want to reveal, something not, or something to certain parties and something's not, and so on.
Yeah, and I think I think it's very important that we have financial due diligence. Like I don't mind an exchange that I sell. Like I use Kraken, the exchange. I think it's quite cool. You know, I don't mind that they know who I am and they have my passport details, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I trade Monero there, but I'm okay with them knowing that. You know, so I think it's okay to disclose this kind of information, but it's nice. You know, it was my brother who I bang on. I'm always chatting away to him about crypto stuff. He's got some small position, but he's not really into it. And so he called me the other day and he was like, "Hey, you know, I think with Bitcoin you can see people's balances. Did you know that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know that." But the funny thing is, I've been banging on about that for like years with him. We've had this conversation many times, and it just kind of clicked with him. Now he doesn't work in tech; he works in finance stuff, but he's a smart guy. And so people, I think a lot of people, like you said earlier, they don't even know. I think if you ask the average person, "Hey, do you know I can see your Bitcoin balance if you send me any, and I know your address?" They don't even realize, you know.
So what are the apps that you've seen out there that you think, oh, this is the future?
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I really think privacy is super important. So I would like to see more work done on privacy. And so I think, and I know Silvio also believes deeply in privacy, of course, within the bounds of the law. And so you can't just circumvent the law, but he cares deeply about it, and he's interested in bringing privacy to Algorand. And I think it'd be very exciting to bring some form of privacy to Algorand. Mm-hmm. And so I think things like DEXs and swaps, they're just like super cool. I think it's like the first time I did my first trades on Tiny Man, which is the one that I just came across on Algorand first. I was like blown away that like I swapped money with an individual out there without involving any centralized party. And that was just like mind blowing, all using this smart contract stuff. Like, I know it sounds simple because that's the essence of what we do. And it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like we've had this for a while, but it still blows my mind when I'm using it. And so I think if you were to layer a little bit of privacy on top, maybe even, for example, where the bids and the asks or the trade between two people is private until they finalize it, as an example. So it's not full end-to-end privacy, but privacy during the negotiation. I think that could be cool. I'm really into the DID stuff, like the decentralized identity. I love the idea of ownership of your own identity. Like I was flying from Barcelona last night for the ACE conference, which was a big success. This is the Algorand Centers of Excellence, which is basically teaching Algorand at universities as part of the blockchain component, with some major universities and some incredible professors who I got to meet. And so I'm flying back, and like, you know, this stupid passport thing, and like they're inspecting it, and like, you know, you're carrying this old weird British document around, like big purple book. It just doesn't make any sense. That kind of thing. Being able to own my own digital identity, where I can have attestations in many different forms. So I have like a DID, a decentralized identity, you know, data blob online that attests to maybe a whole bunch of different things, not just my nationality and my ability to, say, travel with a passport, but like my criminal status or whatever, or, you know, my membership of a certain club or certain privilege. And so I like the idea that it can be self-sovereign, that it's owned by me and not by some government somewhere. And so that gets me very interested. And I think we're going to see more DID stuff come out. And then finally, governance, I think, is very important. And I think what Cardano did with its governance system Catalyst and what we're doing, evolving governance on Algorand, especially around XGovs, giving the power for folks to propose proposals to vote on, that is really, really important, and I think quite empowering, especially when folks will be directly then responsible for the distribution of funds to the projects that they support. And I think that that's where the foundation should get to, i.e. where we provide the funds and let the community decide with that portion of funds that's dedicated to that. And it's good for us because it unburdens us because us making the decision, we're not going to please everyone. When the crowd make the decision, it's up to them to be happy with the decision that they've made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fantastic.
How about you? What do you? I know you're into privacy, definitely, right? ZK stuff. You like a lot of that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really attracted me to the space, and I think's really evolved, is just how technically efficient things can become.
Sure.
So you talked about decentralized exchanges, for example, where people can swap assets through a pool or set of pools that are set up on chain. For me, if I look at that and I look at lending, which can then be easily added to that, you've got something which is super technically efficient. I mean, first of all, you've got delivery versus payment of assets.
Yes.
Two parties directly with each other. You've got escrowing of funds, again, without a third party in these pools. You've got lending logic, interest payments, investors receiving their interest, borrowers having to pay, liquidations, all of that without anybody running the show, fully automated. And you can do it with counterparts that you don't need to know and trust.
Right.
I think it's absolutely mind-boggling.
It is. Yeah. And I know it's kind of like, like I said, kind of a fundamental, it's kind of, it's taken for granted at this point is what I'm trying to say, but it actually is incredible.
Well, the focus is actually on the failures, right? Because they make the news. The focus is, there's a scam over here, there's been a hack over there. The focus for me is, this is light years ahead of the infrastructure that we have in place for the financial system today. For me to pay you and to buy an asset from you and to have that delivered and the paperwork and the disconnection between the payment and the delivery, and just that, the very basics, doesn't exist in almost any business transactions that we do today.
Yeah.
So thinking about decentralized finance and how technically efficient that is, how quick and instant and without the need for intermediaries and overhead and so on, for me, it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, and the NFT things, like I'm not a big NFT collector. Like I kind of get it, but I'm also not that into art really. And so for me, like NFTs are super cool though, because like they're just a mechanism for digital rights management. And so I'd love to be able to be at a place where an NFT can represent my Steam collection of games that I've got, or access to a club or a beautiful hotel or a spa, or maybe like it's a car key for my Tesla. By the way, I actually don't have a Tesla. I have no car right now. I'm saving up for a Tesla. But like, let's say like I could send you my car key because I can like ping you over the NFT, and now like I've given you my key and I don't have it anymore. And so you can drive the car and I can't. And so there's a lot of power in that. And I think that's really exciting. I think NFTs, or just, representation of ownership of something, whether it's a physical thing, a real thing, or a digital thing, that is around to stay. And also, I love the idea that I could like fractionally invest in things that are previously off limits to me. Like, for example, maybe a music collection. Maybe I buy a fraction of a Beatles song or something like that. And I love that idea. And so I think there's a lot more we're going to see in that space, other than just say image collection, which is also cool if you're into it. But I think it can go a lot further than where it is right now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there's some interesting projects that we've been involved in on Algorand with NFTs. So we have Arist, which is the high-end art NFT marketplace, and Opulus, which is the music marketplace, and they have NFTs of music rights, and they have a DeFi liquidity pool as well, which is very active for funding new artists, musicians, and so on.
Cool.
So some really interesting things going on with NFTs in Algorand, which I think is great. Yeah. Which leads me on to the question, as CTO of Algorand, tell me about Algorand.
Yeah, I mean, Algorand, I think, is best in class. And of course, I'm going to say that, right? Because, I'm paid to say it. But I wouldn't have left my role in Cardano, which is obviously a very prominent project, had I not felt that when I was coming, I was going to be a success, and that I was joining a project that was authentic and valuable. And so all the way through my crypto career and my personal interest in crypto, I've never gotten massively rich. And I think the reason is because I buy quality. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's like I never bought any of the scammy, shitty things that just exploded. I remember Ripple, and so I'm not a big fan of Ripple. And so my wife bought Ripple, and she like made like 64 times her investment. And there I am with Monero as an example, and it's only like up like 30%. It's still a lot of money, but it's still a great percentage terms. But like I remember like thinking, I wish I could buy crap. I wish I could buy.
Yeah, you followed the tech. You followed the substance.
I do try to follow the substance, but it turns out it feels
nobody else does.
Yeah, but it feels like the quality projects sometimes are slower to appreciate than some of the scams. But I can tell you from a technical, well, I know because you're hyper technical, but from a technical point of view, Algorand is best in class. Like the distributed systems engineering, the quality of the code. We have our bug rewards program. It's been ongoing, so anyone can get paid up to millions of dollars if they submit critical bugs. And we've only had a handful of things come up, and of them only one was moderate. So it really is strong engineering, strong code. We have a world-class team who are building this project. The applied cryptography, so the application of the cryptographic primitives, is second to none. I mean, the signature schemes we use are best in class. The post-quantum primitives that we've just rolled out with Falcon and state proofs to do interoperability and also fast catch-up and other things like that are literally the bleeding edge of cryptography. And so we have people who fundamentally understand these things. They understand why you can build a cryptographic hardness using an n-dimensional lattice. These are some of the smartest people in the world. And so the team is so capable and so competent that what they're building is genuinely a work of art in terms of software. And so if you add that to guys like Silvio, who of course invented the VRF primitive, which is the basis of consensus, Algorand, it just checks so many boxes, dude. Like it's super green. Like I said before, I calculated that mainnet is running at about 80 kilowatts or so. I mean, that's like charging a Tesla. I mean, running the entire network, billions of transactions, potentially billions of dollars in value, completely self-sovereign, and it's like charging a Tesla. That is very acceptable at cost in energy, in my view. The speed at which it operates, the finality, right? So you don't have to deal with block height battles. You'll know from Ethereum, you've done plenty of work on it. I know. If your transaction is rolled back because there's a block height battle where you've got like a short fork and then one head dies or one chain dies, you got to resubmit. You got to manage nonces. The nonce thing with Ethereum, of course, with the transaction. It's a pain in the butt. Like I think Algorand from an infrastructural point of view, from a UX user experience point of view, is maybe one of the best blockchains in the world. I think it is potentially the best right now in terms of technology. Why then are we number 28, 29, 30 in the rankings rather than number 8 like Cardano or number 6 like whatever, one of those other ones? And the answer is, I think, we need more awareness. We need to grow and because Cardano has Charles, Solana has Anatolia, whatever. I'm trying to get the message out there. I'm trying to bring awareness and get into the zeitgeist. Like make people excited about Algorand, because I think a lot of folks just are not aware of how great it is. I wasn't aware until I started deeply looking at it during my interview process, as I've mentioned. And when I seen how great it was, I was like, this thing is fit for purpose. This thing is ready for prime time, and I can make this thing a huge success. I'm working with the team, and so yeah, I just think that Algorand really is I don't like maximalism. I'm not a maximalist type guy. I try to not be too hypey about things, but like on paper, it is killer. And so getting the dev experience to be better with AlgoKit, which is this thing I'm working on, which basically maybe not needed for really advanced users like yourself, Adi, and your team, because you guys are expert level. But for folks who are new to the platform, it's not that easy to just jump into PyTeal or Teal. And so these people, they need it to be a good experience. They need it to be like using their computer. It needs to be enjoyable. And so we're very close to launching our beta on AlgoKit. I think Monday is probably, we're going to publicly announce it or publicly release it. Some of the repos are already open. We're just polishing off last bits. And you'll be able to take your Mac, open terminal, use Homebrew or pip to install. It's a one-line install, and you have a complete environment, everything you need to build, templating, the whole lot. And it's going to be so much easier for people. It's going to have great documentation. And so, getting into the zeitgeist, as I've said before, becoming like on the tip of everyone's tongue, that is where we need to take Algorand next. So the two things is I think getting the message out there, and I'm trying to do that thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. It's another example of getting the message out. And second thing, getting the developer experience to be as fun and easy as it is on something like Ethereum. And that's something that we're directly addressing and will for 2023.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. I mean, I can tell you first of all, I can second a lot of what you said. From our experience, the two things we've really loved about working with Algorand is that the tech has just worked. We've never had any issues, and we can't say that about all the platforms that we've been working with.
Sure.
And it's been top end. And the second thing is the people.
Okay. Yeah.
One after one, just amazing. Top people in the space.
Yeah, I think
really,
honestly,
really
it's a privilege to work with some of these guys. You know, they're just incredible. Like, some of these people, I had breakfast with some of them the other day in the ACE conference, and I'm sitting around a table, and there's people who've like contributed to like the VRF, contributed to like non-determinism, contributed to like how we test for prime numbers. You know, it's just an incredible array of capable people.
Yeah, so I think the people speak to the tech, but I also think that they just speak to the organization itself and the way it works and the mission and the way people go about things as well.
Yeah.
Because I think there are projects in our space where it's one big party, and there's others where they're sitting down and doing the work. Right?
Sure.
And this is definitely one of those where they're sitting down doing the work.
Yeah, but sometimes I think, so I agree with you, but sometimes I think, you can be, if you sit down and do the work, but no one knows about it, I think that's a problem. And then people might say, well, we do some advertising, and we have done like sponsorships of Formula E and the racing. And so I'm not saying that the message isn't out there in some way, but I think more important than that kind of advertising. I've got no idea about advertising, by the way. I should caveat that. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But to my mind,
we're not two marketing guys, are we?
We're not two marketing guys. But to my mind, like, I want to get grassroots excitement going, right? It's like, that's where it is. It's like people who are passionate, grassroots. It's not for me about having a dude who's watching a sailing event on TV, having a glass of wine, and then he's like, oh, I wonder what that logo is. And he Googles it and then buys it. That's not the way forward. I think it's more important to just build community, build people excited, explain this to people, make it easy, make it accessible, and then it will grow naturally because it's an awesome project.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's the right thing. It's the way when I started in the space, that's how I discovered Ethereum. I installed it, played with it, and so on. And I think that's really what you want. Technologists just want new toys to play with, and it goes from there. And I think you want to put it in their hands.
Totally.
What do you think about? I mean, let's say the challenges of the space in general, because we both of us have been in the space for a while. It's a roller coaster. There's a lot. There's a lot of, it's a crazy circus in terms of things going on around us. Yeah. And we obviously look at the tech, and that's the thing that we think is super interesting here. But what do you think the main challenges are now? Maybe the main opportunities, and also what are we looking at in 5 or 10 years in your view?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so I think probably the biggest thing is legitimacy. I think like events like what happened with FTX and other things, that they just damage the credibility of the space. But like an idea as powerful as this, as of the virtues I mentioned earlier on, can't be put back in the box. It's not like we're going to go back to a world where, forget about that decentralized digital assets that are like internet native and super cool and can do all this cool stuff. We'll just stick with the euro. I mean, it's that we're not going to go back. I just don't think it's going to happen. So a bit like the internet in like the 90s. I remember getting the internet. My parents were like, oh, that's just for porn. That was the perception of the internet in the 90s. It was for porn. And so certainly, gambling. Yeah. And so like people didn't have any idea how it would change business globally, how it would empower people to get a story out, to have live games broadcast, like sporting games broadcast, to watch all your movies, to consume all your media, to interact with people all over. Like, people just didn't see those things. And so I think it's a similar case here. I think the internet allowed people, it empowered small businesses and put them on a global roadmap, and basically gave a voice to people, gave a channel to people who previously didn't have it. And so it connected the entire globe, of course. And so for me, Web3 or crypto or whatever you want to call it, this decentralized platforms that we're building, they will do the same thing for disintermediation. They will basically remove the middleman. They'll make things cheaper, more efficient, and more available, more inclusive. And that is a hell of a powerful thing. And so I think I don't have actually the foresight to kind of see what's going to come down the same way I did in the 90s. I knew the internet was cool. I wanted to play Counter-Strike with my friends on a Friday night, but I couldn't foresee like with the ubiquity that it's become now, where it's basically everything from our communication to how we book flights to how we order our food. And so like, I think it's going to be similar with Web3. I think you're going to see things that we can't even imagine now. In terms of where I think things are going to go, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, the market capitalization of the space, so the value of all the cryptocurrencies, if you add it all up in terms of dollars, it's, I don't know what it is now, I haven't looked at it, but maybe it's 700 million or something, or 700 billion or something. Let's have a little look real quick. Yeah, okay, it's 900 billion. Okay, so just under $1 trillion. I mean, to put that in perspective, ExxonMobil is probably like half a $1 trillion. Apple is, I don't know what it is now, maybe $2 trillion or whatever. So like, all the crypto is basically just one big company out there. And so I think that we're going to see an explosion like we did with derivatives in the 80s of the value of the crypto space. And so I do think the volatility will die down as the market cap grows, because it just becomes a bigger ocean of money. And I think, and again, I'm not an economist, but I would guess that it will be up there with a precious metal. Like if you take the precious metals, you break them down by category. If you take all the gold in the world, it's worth about $11 trillion for all the gold in the world. And so I would think, by the way, in silver and tin and lead, and there's all these different precious metals, and they all have a big market capitalization. And so I would expect to see crypto somewhere between $8 to $10 trillion. I mean, that would be my guess, that it would balloon to the value of something like a precious metal like gold, which I see it as a similar category. And so that's my expectation. My expectation is that we will see huge innovation, applications that we can't even envisage now, and importance. I think we're going to see it become, just like the internet's very important. If that went down today, I can't do my work. And so we're going to see an importance around these assets that we're building. These
but
platforms.
Do you have an idea of what they're going to be used for to give them that value?
Well, so I think that they're going to be networks of people. They're basically, in many ways, they're similar, in my view, to social networks. They're networks of value. They're networks of relationships between people. And so I think we're going to see Algorand and and similar high quality projects become the infrastructure that people use, not only to transfer value between each other, but also nearly to communicate, nearly to coordinate relationships. And what I mean by that is, they'll become so intrinsic and so natively important to our relationships between each other that we will see these networks not anymore necessarily as just like coins we move around, but instead as our entire system of value transfer between each other. And so I really do think that we're going to see these things maybe blossom in ways that I can't speculate to now. But it has the same feel to me that the internet had in the 90s.
Yeah, interesting. I think there's a time dimension here which is very, very difficult in innovation. Right, you alluded to it with the internet, right? You went through the 90s and there were spurts, the dot-com boom, and suddenly it went crazy, and then bust again. And what were people really using it for then?
Sure.
Could they have envisaged all that commerce and B2B and Netflix and so on?
Yeah.
I think, and we see something similar with AI. Right? AI, as far as I'm concerned, has been around since I was at university in the early 90s.
Uh-huh.
The principles haven't changed that much, but it's taken a long time for value to come through.
Sure.
Right? And then you get these moments, like ChatGPT is a moment, right? Suddenly something comes out and, you step change, game changer.
Yeah.
And I think that here you've got something which is like that, but it's also a group sport, right? It's not something you can do on your own, like AI. And it involves value, which means it's going to attract every scammer, right? Everyone who wants to do a scam, to steal something. This is technology plus value. You can just have a go. So I think you've got all those extra challenges, and of course the regulation that then attracts as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just the technology which takes time to proliferate and to evolve, as it has done in the others, but you have to add these other dimensions of difficulty as well.
I totally agree.
Which to me says we've hardly started.
I totally agree. And by the way, I know exactly what you mean in terms of the AI. Like ChatGPT is a moment. It's a watershed for AI. And so my brother-in-law works at a senior level in machine learning, and so it's a hobby for me. I follow the space, and like he was demoing things the other day where a movie can run. So like you have a movie, and you can hot swap the ads in the movie using machine learning to basically, or neural networks to basically replace the billboards with appropriate ads. So we're going to see a time when like you'll go to a movie and like the ads will change the product placement will change in the movie predicated on what's appropriate at the time. And that's crazy stuff. When I seen Stable Diffusion for the first time, and you can type a sentence in and hit enter, and offline using nothing but a neural network of numbers, because that's what you look inside. It's just a bunch of floating point numbers. It's able to draw anything. The same way I could say to you, hey, picture a cat. Now picture that cat wearing boots. Now picture him, holding a fish. You can do it because you know what those concepts are, and your brain's able to put them together. And that's what we've created with Stable Diffusion. It's effectively able to bring concepts like that together. It's incredible. And so what's come out in this last 6 months in terms of AI has now, I think, caught the world off guard. People didn't realize that this, and so it's like, are we on this knee of the curve, Ray Kurzweil style, where he's a futurist who predicts we're going to see things go from like this, and so very quickly things could change fast. And so, yeah, I think it's
and I think that's a confusing thing when you look at blockchain as well, because on the one hand, there's a lot of money that's gone in. There's a lot of projects, a lot of innovation happened very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And you've also got these spurts of activity. So the NFTs and the NFT marketplaces, DeFi. But it's very easy to look at that and say, and think, that's it. It's kind of, it is where it is. And that's all we're going to see from it, from the naysayers. But the other side of it would be, it hasn't even, this is just the beginning, right? That's the DeFi that we have at the moment is like basic Lego bricks.
Yeah.
And there are all these other challenges that we still need to solve. But if you look at the technology and the technical efficiency, if you went to any computer scientist and you asked them what's the most technically efficient way to exchange value, I don't think there is a more efficient way to do that than to do it through blockchain today.
I totally agree. It's quite literally generally more fun and more better user experience for me sending money via crypto, which I do regularly, than it is using my own bank in Ireland. And it's faster and better. And so I totally agree. Also, one last thing I would say is that over the next 5 to 10 years, I do think we're probably going to see the emergence of quantum capable machines, as in, quantum computers that can run quantum algorithms like Grover's algorithm for symmetric attacks and Shor's algorithm for asymmetric or breaking the discrete log. And it used to be this thing you'd say and you kind of half believe it might happen, but who knows? Whereas what we're seeing in some of the emergent papers that are coming out, both in mathematical techniques and in approaches to building stable quantum computers that have a larger and larger number of qubits. And of course, this basically means the power of the computer grows, its ability to factor larger numbers grows. This, I feel it's really coming fast. And so that's going to be a very interesting space. That 5 to 10 year window, definitely for me, is probably going to be the border around seeing the first quantum machine that's able to attack. And so blockchains that don't have strong engineering, they're going to have a big problem dealing with this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Algorand is in prime position on that because we have some of the smartest minds in the post-quantum space. And so that is a big bonus.
Yeah, very cool. John, before we go, are there any books you'd recommend? Is there a book you've read recently that maybe you could share with listeners?
Absolutely. So it's a techie book. So I read Serious Cryptography by Jean-Philippe Amasson.
That sounds as techie as it gets.
Yeah, it's an exceptional book because it actually brings you through the entire journey from the basics of cryptography all the way through hashing functions, all the different primitives, all the way to modern post-quantum stuff. And it's very accessible, as in it's not overly mathematical, it's not overly technical. It's reasonably technical, but not overly technical. And so Serious Cryptography by Jean-Philippe Amasson is my book of the day.
Okay, amazing. And is there anything else you want to share before we go?
I guess, I'm excited for what we're going to do in 2023. It feels like 2023 is going to be, maybe this is a little bit hippy dippy, but there's an energy in the air. I'm excited about it. And, just hang in there. I think I'm very focused, and the team are very focused on ensuring the success of Algorand. We think it's an incredible product, an incredible blockchain platform. We think it's best in class, and we have some very exciting things coming out. We're working on the decentralization. We're going to be working on making the relays even more decentralized. They're good, but we need to do better. We're going to make the user experience a hell of a lot better. And I'm hopeful that this will all result in appreciation of the platform, the value of the platform, and indeed adoption.
Yeah, amazing. John Woods, CTO of Algorand. Thank you very much for joining our first podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely, Eddie. And I'd love to be back on sometime. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Apply Blockchain podcast. Make sure you follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please let us know by leaving a review and clicking subscribe. Until next time.